Ronald Acuña returned from injury this year, looking like his old self minus the speed. We'll be breaking down his 2026 outlook and others on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast. Brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source for fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Matthew Wane. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit the bell below to subscribe to the channel and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. And if you're listening to Apple, Spotify, wherever you're getting that audio source, make sure to hit that bell as well to subscribe yourself to the show. Give us a 5-star rating and review. It really helps out the show. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. All right, let's get in it. I got a great show for you today. We're going to be breaking down some of the Braves and talk about their 2026 outlooks and, who is actually going to be valuable on this team for you in 2026 and who we can avoid. And we all know we got some, if you're an everydayer, you already know who I already hate on this team and who I love and who and whatnot. So we'll get into it. We're going to talk about, all these kind of things. But let's start at the top. Ronald Acuña, like I mentioned right in the opening there, came back after dealing with the knee injury, obviously missed quite a bit of time, but finally came back and was just crushing it. He played about 95 games, 338 at bats, 74 runs, 12 doubles, 21 bombs, a triple, 42 ribs, 9 stolen bases, and batted .290. Honestly, this is pretty much Ronald Acuña as a whole. Now, we know that Acuña went down last year to a knee injury and obviously ended his season short. And one of the biggest fears about it was, were we going to see the speed ever again? And that's the difference of, being a top 5 pick, and if not the number 1 pick overall in baseball, and being a first round pick. And that's really the question we got to ask ourselves. So let's look at Ronald Acuña as a whole. Well, I'll tell you this: sprint speed was at 27th 27.9 percentile, 64th percentile. I apologize. In 25, you look before that in like 23, we'll say, when he had that big monster season, he was in 67th. So the speed honestly didn't dip in terms of sprint speed. And how do you measure that in terms of are they able to steal bases? Well, I guess at least he didn't get any slower. That's the kind of the point. But the question behind Ronald Acuña is, what is the methodology and approach when handling Ronald Acuña as a manager of a baseball team, not a fantasy manager, but a real manager? And those are the key questions you got to ask yourself. Are they going to let him run? What are the steals attempts going to be? Those are the things that kind of scare me. Now, I don't really have that statistical data, but based off of, him only stealing 9 bases and only being caught once, since he's only attempted 10 stolen bases in 95 games. Now, last time he played a full season, we all know what happened there, right? He had 73 stolen bases and also got caught stealing 14 times. So that's a grand total of like 87 stolen base attempts. Now you see a significant drop in that workload. Now, maybe it's just because, hey, we're returning from it, let's not push it. But I mean, ultimately, the dude played nearly every day once he returned and was absolutely monstrous. So ultimately, we're gonna have to look and listen out for what the theology behind managing his stolen base numbers and how they're going to handle him wanting to run so often. But on the other side, on the flip side, batting average, power, things like that, that's all back to normal, right? Like, elite barreling percentage of 15.7%. Coupled that with hard contact nearly happening 50.1% of the time. Those two together explain the 21 home runs and literally a half a season's worth of at bats. The average exit velocity is super elite at 92.6 miles an hour. The expected slugs is at 552, supports the numbers we're seeing. Batting average might take a little bit of a negative regression because of how often he strikes out, but at least he walks 17% of the time, which is super above average. Now you look back to 23, which was like the last full season for him. He doesn't really strike out as much, and I think it was more probably trying to get things kind of going. So I think that the batting average is here to stay as well. I think everything but the speed is in question, and that's really just a matter of, okay, what are we getting from Ronald Acuña in 2026, and is he going to steal bags? Because if they're saying, hey, they're going to let him loose in 26, then ultimately he's the first pick in all fantasy drafts, in my opinion. I don't think there's even a question. Dude has done 40-40. He's now done 40-70. The dude is just ultimately a machine for fantasy baseball overall. Walks a lot, doesn't really strike out, hits for power, steals bags, gets driven in. Everything about Ronald Acuña's profile screams number one overall pick. The biggest thing will be, is he the number one pick or the seventh pick? Is the question we're gonna have to answer. We lose stolen bases and he chips in 10, but only hits about 40 home runs. That's a lower first round pick. He gets 20 bags, mid pick, but we'll see. But let's move on. I think I've spent enough time on Ronald Acuña. Let's talk about Matt Olson. Another bright spot on the season. He had a really rough 2024 campaign, and I'm just really happy to see that he bounced back from that, and really just figured things out. In all honesty, you know, and when I say really rough campaign for him, it's really just like batting average and whatnot and runs. And that those are the key parts here. Now, look, in points leagues, you really didn't care. He did exactly what he expected, except last year in 24, the strikeouts came in a little bit more rip with not as many walks, and that kind of hurts your bottom line. But this year, he really returned to form. He batted 272. He had 91 walks to 176 strikeouts, which seems to be his thing. But he had 29 home runs, 95 ribs, and 98 runs, 41 doubles, I might add, as well, and along with two triples. Now, Matt Olson is an elite first baseman. I think he's top five. There's going to be questions surrounding, okay, who are we drafting next year at the position that's going to be, the overall? Is Freddie even in the top five? Where does Nick Kurtz fall in with these players and things like that? But I think Matt Olson is probably going to be, I would say, the two or three, possibly at the position, and we'll see. I have to get down to my rankings, but ultimately, I like Matt Olson. And if the team can somehow figure out how to get 100% back to where they were in 23, then Matt Olson is going to explode. The runs and ribs really just need to get there for him. We saw it kind of return this year, but there's that whole other ceiling we saw in 23 where it was just amazing, right? Where he hit over 30 home runs, where he had 103 ribs, where he batted 280. I'm sorry, where he had 54 home runs and had 139 ribs and 127 runs. I was reading 22, which is still also really good. But those are the kind of years that's his ceiling, and that is the kind of where you'll draft him and want to draft him because of that. Now, will Matt Olson repeat his career year? Probably not. But if he can get close, if he can get 36 to 39 home runs, if he can get 100 runs and ribs, batch at 270, 280, you're a happy camper. That's an amazing year. That's first base one or two. That's kind of really where we're at with it. Can you do it? Absolutely. Let's move on. So about Austin Riley, who unfortunately went down the season and did not finish the whole season, unfortunately. But hey, it is what it is. And the one thing I will say about Riley as a whole on the season, did not really have a strong season. We're having 2 years of I would say poor performance for what I pay for Riley, and also for what we've expected from him. Between 24 and 25, it's like, sub 20 home runs, didn't play a full season, you know, batting average was down. He's a career 270 hitter. This year hit 260, year before 256. But before that, in 23, he hit 281, then 273, then 303. Like those 3 years were absolutely stellar. And we just kind of thought, he would be closer to the 280 batting average than we were seeing the 250s and 260. Like, I hope that there's some positive regression in that. We'll get into that in a little bit. But the ribs are down, the runs are down, the doubles are there, but ultimately there's not a lot that's supporting, hey, he should be doing better on the stat sheet and what we hope for. Now, there's some positive things and there's some negative things. And let's get into that. Expect to slug at 478. His slug on the season is 428. So that's pretty much on point. Average exit velocity is 92.3 mile an hour. He does crush the ball. And he barrels at an elite level, 15.2, which tells me the power should be there, especially with that mixed with how often he makes hard contact and nearly at 50% of the time. The dude really does do a good job at making quality contact and hitting the ball hard. What I see as the biggest opportunities for him is how often he's been striking out, specifically this year, 28.6%. That is atrocious. That's rounding 30. And it's very hard to be successful in the bigs when you're striking out 30% of the time and have, the 280s and the batting average. I think if anything, if he continues this kind of performance, we're going to see him into the 250s, even into the high 240s, especially with how often he walked this year at 6%. He only walked, which is really bad. And then you go back to 23, if this page will load, and at least back then he struck out 24% and at least walked 8.3%. That is kind of scary that we're seeing those kind of dips and struggles. He's also just chasing 27.7% of the time, and it's just not great. Then let's look a little bit deeper under the hood, and let's look at just like, okay, he's grounding out actually at a pretty good number at 34.6% and hitting fly balls at a decent number at 32%. I don't understand it. I really don't. We see an increase in how often he's pulling the ball, but still, I don't know what it is. I'm hoping that there's a course correction. The beautiful part is he's probably going to come at a discount, so I want him. I'm going to try and draft him in 23 and 26. Let's see what happens. Coming up next, I got Michael Harris 8. I'm not going to lie, and I'll tell you why. Coming up right after. There's nothing better than catching a baseball game live. The energy of the crowd, the chance to see your team in person, but actually getting tickets, that's the tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees. It takes the fun out of it all. That's why I use Game Time. The app gives you the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by Game Time's guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included and upfront. So you see what you pay there is what you pay at checkout. It's great. I've been using Game Time, honestly, way before I worked for Locked On. And quite honestly, I can tell you, it's the only place I buy tickets from. I love hanging out and tailgating. And then when I feel the urge to go into the game last minute, I use Game Time. It's the only app that really makes it fast and easy for me. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And again, use that promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Download the Game Time app today. And all right, let's get back into it. We got a little Michael Harris action. Now, Michael Harris, going into the season, specifically my counterpart, Don Martino, who isn't here to defend himself, so I get to rag on him the whole time. I'm kidding. But ultimately, he wasn't alone in this category. Oh, Michael Harris is going to have the opportunity. Acuña's not there for a good chunk of the beginning of the season. He's going to prove himself. He's going to be this awesome guy. Yeah, about that. Michael Harris. Let's talk about it, bro. Michael Harris on the season played a full season, 55 runs, 26 doubles, 20 bombs, 86 ribs, 20 stolen bases, batted 249. Meh. I mean, granted, look, I've heard the arguments too. Look what he was doing towards the end of the season. Oh my God. Oh my God. That's it. But cool, bro. That was the year before. In July, he was pretty darn good with 3 home runs and batting 301. In August, he was lights out. But that's it, though. Fell off again. Fell off a cliff at September. When you needed him. When you were like, oh, my God, he finally did it. You're starting him every day. And he's disappointing every day. When you bat 237 and only walk away with 3 home runs, it's not really fun. Now, he just isn't there for you. Look. I think we're done with Michael Harris. At least I am. I don't think after how many years now has he been in the league that we've been screaming for him to do this now? 3 full years going on 4 now. I think we have enough of him on paper to say, hey, I don't think the ceiling is there for him. I think we need to manage expectations. Look, he makes contact, but it's okay. It's above average at 9.1% barrel rate, but it's not elite. He creates hard contact, but not elite. It's 43.4%. That's league average. That's meh. Hence why we saw 20 home runs. Whatever. A 2020 isn't bad. But the other thing is, the average wasn't there to make up for the fact that we didn't get more home runs or stolen bases. Look, he only walked 2.5% the whole year. That's atrocious. even with a 20% K rate. Yeah, he doesn't strike out, but he doesn't walk either, which means he isn't building up the count. And like it's just not good. There's no way, no path with these kind of numbers for the batting average to be better, to make up and make him the price that he's been the last couple of years, to say, okay, yeah, he's a 2020 guy. He's a valuable. No, but usually 2020 guys come with a 280 batting average, and that's when they're valuable. This isn't there. And usually also come with high run numbers. He isn't even being driven in because he's hitting seventh, eighth in the lineup. If he was hitting ninth, maybe some upside. But I'm just not feeling it. When he does hit ninth, cool, but it's not enough. They move him around too much. Look, Michael Harris, I'm done. Been done. I sipped the haterade the second I saw that the Braves were on my radar. Here, I'll take another sip now. We need to get it out of our heads that Michael Harris is going to be elite. Now, flip side, if everybody starts feeling how I feel and his price is actually where it should be, pick 150, 160, 170, pray for those prices, then I'm back in. Then I'll be in. Then I'll buy in on the upside. Then I will say he's a value. He's worth it. There is a shot for some ROP, return on pick. But that, like, if you're paying a top 100 pick for a guy that isn't really doing much in any category except for home runs and stolen bases, and again, it's meh, I don't want a piece of that in the top 100. There's way better players around him that are going to outperform that pace. I'm not drafting a guy at his ceiling when we have 3 years of proof that he can't do it. So I think we need to adjust our expectations for Michael Harris. Now let's move on. Now, this next guy, really, we don't even know if he's going to be on the team this year. There's an option for him. It's Ozzie Albies. There's a club option for him, so we don't know if they're going to accept it, but there's a buyout of $4 million, which pretty much says, like, hey, we can get you for cheap. And I mean, his contract is cheap, not for nothing. Like, we look at what Ozzie Albies' contract looks like. So it's a $7 million club option or a $4 million buyout. $7 million, he's probably going to be on the team. Let's just be honest. And that's okay. I think that this is probably one of the better landing spots for him, at least for this year. You can't really get better than that. Well, you can. You can go to the Dodgers or the Phillies, but I mean, I don't think that's where he's going to end up. I think he'll be on the team this year. Now, the thing is about Albies, I don't know if I really want him even on my team. I've been one of the truthers, but we've seen 2 years of steady decline from that 2023 season, right? Like 603 at bats, 74 runs, 23 doubles, 2 triples, 16 bombs, 74 RIS, 14 stolen bases, and batted a measly 240. Like, I'm done. I'm done buying in on him being a top 3, number 1 second baseman for me for the last 2 years. I'm done with it. I was wrong. I was kind of chasing the elite performances we saw in the past, but I'm done. I don't think that it's there. Everything's in the toilet. Expecting batting average is 247. It's right on pace. Yeah, he walks at an average pace and strikes out only 14.1%. But the problem is, though, it doesn't tell the whole story. Like, he's just not doing enough to really get it done. It's just I don't think we're gonna see it. And is he getting unlucky? It's not like he ground balls way too much. It's 37.3%, which is actually pretty solid. Fly balls, actually, I would like to see a little bit more, but 30.8 isn't bad. He pulls the ball enough too at 48% of the time this year. Like, I'm really not mad at this. What this really is just a guy that's just not hitting well, not making good contact. You see it. The barrel percentage is a 4.9%. That's not quality contact. You only doing that 4.9%. You're making quality contact. Not good. And coupling it with not even relatively often hitting it hard. Like, when you have a hard hit percentage of 30.7%, you're well below league average, which tells you the ball isn't going far, which tells you you're just not being successful here. And it just drives everything in. Like, it's just not fun. Average exit velocity, 87.5 miles an hour. Launch angles in the toilet. Like, everything about him is done. He might be the number 12 second baseman for me because then there's a drop off. There's so many so much new talent out there that I want more than I want Ozzie Albies for 2026. That I'm just not willing to pay the price anymore. And I hope that he doesn't cost that price because I ain't paying it. But coming up next, we're going to talk about pitching. Spencer Schwellenbach. And what do we expect from him and when is he returning? All coming up next. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer for you, and you don't want to miss out. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love FanDuel. It gives me so many ways to play. The built-in parlays, um, uh, try player props, or even just follow the lines during a game and hop in live. Makes watching football way more exciting when you've got a little bit more writing on on the action. Whether you're a casual fan and you love diving into the stats, or you're just checking your fantasy football scores. It just makes it a little extra exciting when you got a little money riding on the game. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com and download the FanDuel app today to get started. And I got a little bet ski for you. Look, Jackson Dart has been looking good. Wouldn't say like, oh my God, he's the next big thing, but he's been looking good. And he's been running. So I'm doing over on the rushing yards. I'm doing an anytime touchdown. I'm doing a Wan'Dale Robinson anytime touchdown. And I'm going to do at least 4 receptions on him, if not 5. And I'm going to do the over on the receiving yards for Wan'Dale because he's pretty much the only target on that team right now. And don't forget scatter boom with an anytime touchdown. And that's going to be a nice same game parlay for you. All right, and like I promised, we're talking about Mr. Spencer Schwellenbach. Now, Spencer Schwellenbach obviously went down to injury. I have to see when he's ready to return. But Spencer Schwellenbach was coming into this season as one of the best options for fantasy baseball, in all honesty. We all said, oh, this kid is really got it. He's like the next big thing. And he really showed out when he came into this year. Sorry, I'm trying to also get this, but hey, injuries happen, and what are you going to do about it, right? But at least he showed off that he was valuable this year, and that's the key part, right? So, trying to get his day of return here. Let me do this. Sorry, it was just easier for me to pause it at this point. But so Schwellenbach had a fracture in his elbow, which is a lot better than dealing with elbow tightness and things like that, where could possibly lead to the TEAJ, which is like pretty much STDs for baseball. Tommy John, if you're not familiar with the with what I'm talking about. Now that would have been devastating, but right now he's on track to make opening day roster, which is awesome, right? Not make opening day roster, but ready for opening day. He's should be ready for actually spring training, which is great. And you know what I like about Schwellenbach is he repeated what he did last year. He still got 110 innings pitched this year and managed to look phenomenal doing so. 108 strikeouts, 309 ERA, 0.96 whip. Even the FIP was at 325. He looks stellar going into this year. He is, I think, prime for an amazing 2026 season, which I think is full blown breakout, where he should have broke out this year. But I'm talking he is a possible SP1 by end of 26. Now, I'm not drafting him like that, but I'm probably going to tell you he's probably going to be an SP2 or a very high end SP3. But I'm going to say he's probably going to cost about an SP2. And honestly, I'm right behind it, honestly. Look, fastball sits at nearly 97 miles an hour. Average exit velocity is only 88.8 miles an hour. He really does a good job suppressing the hard contact against him. He's super deceptive. Gets guys to chase 34% of the time. Gets guys to whiff 28% of the time. Strikes out guys 24.9% of the time. Doesn't walk guys really at all, only 4.1%. And look, what do you expect to back up a guy that has good ERA numbers and high strikeout numbers? Walks and strikeouts, right? When a guy strikes out players 24.9% of the time, and then you couple that with how little they walk somebody, what they're doing on the mound is repeatable right there and then. Okay. I think that ultimately he's really good for that. That's good control. He's also would couple that with how often he produces ground balls at nearly 50% at 47.4% of the time. Says, hey, when these guys are hitting it, he's causing easy outs. That also helps keep the ERA down. Then you look at, okay, how often does he let guys barrel him? Right at league average, honestly, 7.5%. I'm actually not mad at that. It could be better, obviously, but at least it's not like 10%, 9%, right? It's 7.5%. That could swing 0.5%. It looks a lot better. So quality contact against him, not great. And, hard contact isn't atrocious either. It's 41.5%. Those are all key great numbers for a guy that's pitching and we're hoping to be and take that step forward for an SP2 to be an SP1 at one point. The breakout, I think, is imminent in all honesty. I think that he's going to be the best pitcher on that in that rotation come 26 in all honesty, because he doesn't just have, the tangibles under the advanced stats. He also has a plethora of pitches, four seam fastball, slider, split curve, I'm sorry, split finger, curve, cutter, sinker. All those pitches he throws at minimum 10% of the time. Now, he really does lean on his fastball, 35.3%, but everything else, 18% of the time, slider, 13.9% split finger, curveball, 11.4, cutter, 11.3, sinker, 10%. So his pitch mix is vast and wide. And he throws a lot of stuff at you, which is hence why you see the chase rate. He's deceptive as hell. Schwellenbach knows exactly what he's doing. He has the command out there. The dude just looks like he's going to be a stud. He's a guy I'm going to be targeting in 26 without a doubt. Now, the price crawls into the top 12 pitcher. That's when I'm going to have to take a pause, take a beat. But SB2, I'm all about it. Let's move on. So about Spencer Strider coming back from Tommy John this year. And we had our ups, we had our downs, and ultimately with Spencer Strider, we are here. And it wasn't a great ending to the season, in all honesty, and pretty much the whole season numbers. 125 innings pitched, 131 strikeouts at least. At least he got over a K per inning, but a 4.45 ERA with a 1.39 WHIP. Now, here's the thing, right? Like, what does Dom and I always say when it comes to guys coming back from TJ? Well, control's the last thing to come back. Well, a little bit more than that, but there's some positive signs that make me want to go out and draft Spencer Strider in 2026. Well, the fastball velocity is still sitting at 95.5 miles per hour. You look at what he did in 24 before the injury came. It was only lost like literally 8 miles an hour, which almost a whole mile per hour, but I think he can get that back. A little bit of adjustments, but it's not atrocious. He still got guy whiff at 30.6%. He still guys 24.3% of the time. It's just the rest of the stuff that's still going to come back. His pitches were super flat. It's a matter of finding that grip again, a matter of finding that release angle and getting back on your stuff and getting the command of your things. And that's going to change. I think in the offseason, Strider's a sicko. He's literally the Amon-Ra St. Brown, if you're a football guy. He like serial killer mentality. That's what Spencer Strider is up on the mound. I think a guy like him is going to try and figure out how to be good. I'm going to target him. I think that he's going to come at a really good discount and be worth the price. As long as he's, an SP4, I'm definitely willing to take the shot at him. I think that's where he's going to go because of the performance we had and the fears of the second Tommy John, things like that for Spencer Strider, that I think he's going to come at a price that, will be beneficial for all us as long as we target him in those drafts. Yeah, that's it. Guys, thank you for hanging out with me today. I'm sorry I wasn't able to get through anybody else, but Ronaldo Lopez and Ozuna are honorable mentions of guys I wanted to cover. Lopez, I'm not really relying on, but I will take a shot on him as long as the price is right. And Ozuna, he's going to be one of the last couple picks in the draft, and that's where I'm willing to take him. If not, I ain't touching him with a 10-foot pole. But thank you for hanging out with me today. And please like, subscribe, comment, rate, review, do everything you can to share this show because we truly love bringing it to you every day. And thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get your local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you're listening to your podcasts. Peace.